As promised, I wanted to show you one of my favorite things to do in Procreate and in Photoshop. And you can do this with any traditional media too. So you can take your drawing here. Hold on, let me remove my grid here. So you can take a drawing and do it all in graphite and get all your values in where you want it first. And then you could take a colored pencil and go on top, and the color will merge with the value. Essentially, you could do the same thing in Procreate and Photoshop, where you add a layer. So I have this layer here. I'm going to click on the N here, and I'm going to go to multiply. So in Photoshop, on the layers, there's a little option for the multiply filter. And so what happens is when you take a color, like if I take the color red here, and let's say I want to put my color red into this area, anywhere that I color the red, it's going to blend it together so that the red becomes darker where my values got darker. And so it's almost like making it translucent in a sense, where it's showing you still have the bright saturation of the color, but you get to see the value through it. So this is kind of like kind of like a cheat for doing some really realistic values in an artwork. And then once you have those values really set and solid, then you can go in and you can add color to this, which is what I really love about multiply. And again, you can do this in Photoshop as well. So I can take like a green now, and I can just take in and so wherever I put a highlight, my color stays pure, and then wherever I have my shading, my color will become a little bit more darker because of those dark values. So that's kind of the neat thing about this. So for those of you who are working digitally, and again, you can do this with color pencils too. You can do your whole drawing in pencil first, and then, or I would probably use a black colored pencil to create all your values. And then you can go on top of it with a regular color pencil. You can even do this with watercolor. You just have to be careful the pencil you use and painting watercolor on top of it, because it will smudge or blur it. But some things to maybe test out. We'll talk about mixing colors a little bit later, but this is one technique that works really nicely. Another trick is if you have like gray markers, like Copic markers, then you can do everything in your values first with the markers, and then you can go on top of those markers with colored pencils, and it'll do exactly the same thing that you see happening right here digitally, which is really nice, because then you can figure out, sometimes that's like the struggle, is figuring out your values, especially when you're trying to figure out color value as well, because that plays into this. But you can definitely just play around with color, not worry too much about the value of the color, because you have your other values set in place. So just something to play with, think about, especially those of you who are playing with Photoshop and Procreate. Again, you can do this same thing in there. So just wanted to show you a few colors so you can kind of see what it's doing. So that's kind of the fun part. Just so I can show you, because I did a finished piece of this. So that was my original. This was a sample I did for summer school, and then I added color on top of it. So this is my final color version. And again, just to show you, it's where, like, on the layer, if you press the little letter, so there's a little M, let's multiply. There's different filters here, and they all do different things. So normal, this is what it would look like if I normally painted it. So all these filters do different things, and there's a really good tutorial on Procreate that I'll share with all of you, because they have a really good explanation of all these different filters here. And some of them are just kind of fun to play with. Luminosity, by the way, turns mostly everything into gray values for most of the time. And there you go. So again, you want to go to multiply. And again, that works in Photoshop as well.